Chapter 9. Never on a Sunday. 11:20 p.m. Saturday 15th of August, 1970. Tristan Toussaint's home, Paris. Tristan Toussaint walks reluctantly into his kitchen to answer the insistent ringing of the hotline set up for him when the joint operation began. Hello? There's no point in speaking anything but English, not on this telephone line. Good evening, my friend. Let's meet for a drink. No, my dear confrère. This late, I drink only with my wife. And tomorrow is Sunday. You know that I do not work on Sundays. We will meet on Monday morning, in my office. You've worked with me on a Sunday before now, Tristan. But yes, mon vieux. In the long ago days when we were young. Now a national department rests on my head. Which needs sleep, mon ami. It is not so young a head as once. Her passport has turned up. In that place. Ah. Your men did spot those thugs at Orly. They are being tailed? How can you ask? How do you want me to play it now? Perhaps, for her friend's safety dash. She's safe enough. I'm with her most of the time. Your people are watching her too. So, do you have enough, camarade, to bring them all in? Not yet. Then we must continue. We need to work out a new plan. On Monday, Ellis. Bonne nuit. I feel weird when I wake up in our room on my own, seeing Liana's bed lying there empty. But I'm feeling very happy now that I have the ammunition to make the Sûreté free her. Firstly, her passport has been found. In deeply suspicious circumstances, granted. But I have no intention of telling the gendarmes all the circumstances. I shall simply say that the day we arrived, as they know themselves from the dossier, Liana went out to a casino before she had surrendered her passport to the hotel safe, and it had got lost. Next day the casino found her passport, and it was given to me to give to the Sûreté. The truth, if not all of the truth. Of course, if you're being picky, it's what Mum calls living a lie. But I am not about to get picky when my best friend is rotting in a French holding cell. Secondly, we have incontrovertible proof that the times in the dossier are all a kilter. I have the 2 sets of times and places right there in my notebook ready to show them. Thirdly, lots of witnesses had lied to Inspector Claremont, and their lies had not been noticed. An obvious reason to hold a new hearing and find out what really happened. And all of that had been discovered in just one day. What a whirlwind investigation. I probably won't be able to get Liana freed today, because it's Sunday. Inspector Toussaint had been really clear about the need for a second dossier hearing before Liana can be freed, and there isn't going to be a second hearing on a Sunday, obviously, but I can go and see her and share the good news with her, right after Mass. So I get out of bed to get ready for church, and I realize that there's been so much going on from the moment we arrived at Gare du Nord that I haven't even begun to unpack yet. All my dresses are creased from being in my suitcase too long, with my laundry bag holding the clothes I'd worn in London lumped in on top. That's what comes of hurried packing. I wonder if I can borrow an iron from the hotel? I can't go to Mass in a dress that's creased. It takes me a few minutes to get the clerk at reception to understand, but then he says a maid will bring me an iron, and I go back to the room. While I'm waiting, I stuff all the clothes I've worn here into my laundry bag and hang it in the washroom. The iron still hasn't arrived, so I begin to unpack. After I've hung up 4 dresses, I find a sponge bag tucked in just under them. It isn't my sponge bag, it's a very classy toiletries bag. I wonder if when we packed up in our Bayswater B&B, Liana had accidentally put her washing things into my suitcase. It's just the sort of really beautiful travel accessory that Liana would buy. But surely, tired though we had been on Friday night, Liana had brushed her teeth before climbing into bed. I go back into the little washroom beside our room. We share the washroom with another room, but no one is occupying that room just now, so we have it to ourselves, so as to check, and sure enough, Liana's sponge bag is sitting on a shelf above the basin. It's a lovely glossy striped one that I remember now I'd seen her taking into the washroom with her when we were staying at our Bayswater B&B. So where did this super ritzy toiletries bag come from? How did it get into my suitcase? It isn't mine and it isn't Liana's, but I'm not about to worry my head over someone else's sponge bag when I need to get ready for Mass. The maid arrives with the iron, and I ask her to put the bag into lost property. But we have a communication breakdown. So in the end I just lay it on my bed while I iron my dress so I can get ready for church. When I'm ready I take the fancy bag downstairs with me as well as my huge brass key fob and lay them both on the desk at reception. But again there seems to be some difficulty in getting across the concept of lost property, and I don't want to risk being late for the Mass, so after a bit of to-ing and fro-ing I asked the clerk to put the beautiful toiletries bag into the hotel safe instead. I wait until I see him do it before leaving for the early Mass at the Basilique du Sacré-Cœur. There's probably a nearer church, but the Sacred Heart Basilica is a famous tourist site, and I have always had a deep devotion to the Sacred Heart. After the unexpected way in which my prayer had been answered yesterday, because all I wanted was for Liana to be freed and now she will be, I'm certainly not going to complain about taking half an hour's bus ride so as to hear the Mass. I didn't know before I got there, but they have perpetual exposition of the Blessed Sacrament at the Basilica. I asked a verger when the adoration began. It was nearly 85 years ago. Think of it. In our parish, we're as devout as most, more devout than many. And we've never had an adoration of the Blessed Sacrament that lasted longer than 5 days. Hard enough to get people to agree to take an hour's prayer time at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., for as long as 5 days. But here in Paris they have been worshipping the Blessed Sacrament around the clock for just short of 85 years. You know that wonderful feeling of peace in Glasgow Cathedral, in any church that's open all day and people come to pray and all that prayer seeps into the walls? You can't imagine the feeling of peace in the Basilique du Sacré-Cœur. It took my breath. Being in the Basilica is an indescribable experience. If you are ever in Paris you should be sure to visit and feel all that peace and love yourself. It's beautiful. The building itself is a little too square and elaborate for my taste, but it's considered to be an architectural triumph. I'm there before the Mass starts, in plenty of time to light a candle in thanksgiving. Then I kneel before the monstrance and gazing up at the host I thank our blessed Lord, Jesus Christ, for having shown me the right questions to ask so that now Liana will be safe. After Mass I pop into a nearby café and have a huge café complet, which is the French name for a breakfast without porridge or any other hot food. But they certainly give you a lot of it, so I'm not complaining. When I'm paying the bill I see that I have accidentally ordered and eaten a breakfast for 2 people. What a ready. I must bring Liana here for café complet, so we can laugh together about what a greedy guts I've been. Very soon me and Liana will be racketing all over Paris, trying to cram in all the best sights and buy all the prettiest clothes and eat all the most delicious meals before we have to board the train to Istanbul on Friday morning. I head for the police station. The gendarmes on duty log in Liana's passport. They don't make any difficulty about giving us time together. They put us into quite a pleasant room and send in coffee. We're so happy. I'm up with the lark on Monday morning, my heart singing. Today is a working day, so they can hold a second dossier hearing. At the police station, they tell me Inspector Toussaint isn't there. I'm glad he's having some time with his family. Then I realize I don't know if he has a family. I hope that he's having a good day off anyway. They send me to Inspector Clermont. The inspector is very polite. But he refuses point blank to schedule a second dossier hearing. Even after I show him my notebook, the inspector looks at it all very carefully. He understands everything I'm showing him. He compliments me on the hard work I have done establishing all this. He is enchanted with my powers of observation. He says nice things about my deductive reasoning. He says Liana is lucky to have a friend like me who is determined to show her innocence. And then he refuses to schedule a second dossier hearing. But you know she didn't do it. I wail. Ah, no, Miss Maguire. This is precisely what I do not know. It is for the magistrate to know. I gather the facts for the magistrate and he decides. Is it impossible that Miss Stewart does this? Is it unlikely? Is it likely? These are decisions for a court. What you have made clear is that many people have not been truthful. This is not unusual. It changes nothing. He means what he says. He explains. From the standpoint of the French justice system, the truth gets established at a trial. Charlie Stout was killed at the Eiffel Tower. That is a fact. It is now known, the inspector gives me a little bow, that he could not have been killed any earlier than 9:30 p.m. He was dead by 10:30 p.m. These are facts. People often lie. This is well known. Miss Stewart was asleep in the casino entrance ladies' room from 8:50 p.m. until 10:10 p.m. This is not a fact, it is what she says. It is possible that she was at the Eiffel Tower killing Charlie Stout at 9:30 p.m. If so, she could still have been back at Hotel Albert by 10:15 p.m. If a witness comes forward to say that she is seen asleep in the casino entrance ladies' room at any time between 9:05 p.m. and 10:05 p.m., that is very good for Miss Stewart, but it is still not a fact. It is only what Miss Stewart says and what another person says which to a certain extent corroborates what Miss Stewart says. Certainly if that happened, he would call for an early magistrate's hearing and the magistrate would decide. If two people came forward, the magistrate would almost certainly decide that what Miss Stewart says is true, especially since no one who could have seen her has a motive to lie that they have seen her. If even one person came forward, the magistrate would be very likely to decide that Miss Stewart could not have been at the Eiffel Tower when Mr. Stout was killed. She would most probably be freed. But there is no reason to hold a second dossier hearing, because no new facts which have any bearing on whether she killed Charlie Stout or not have been brought to light. I'm shattered, but I can't argue against what he says. I ask sadly if I may see Liana. Ellis Peveril is waiting to confer with the head of Direction Générale de la Sécurité Extérieure when 9 a.m. rolls round. He knows that he is in a uniquely privileged position. Of course their joint op with Scotland Yard is important to the Sûreté. Italian Interpol's stake in that outcome lends him extra authority. And naturally French national security will go to great lengths to prevent bombs exploding in the middle of Paris. So when a lunatic may have smuggled a Senegalese bomb into Paris, his high standing within ATJF gives him gravitas. But even so, he knows that the man at the top would not spend so much time listening to his theories or give him carte blanche to run this op his own way, let alone follow his lead, if not for the war years they had spent in the resistance together. Tristan trusts him. I've broken the terrible news to Liana. I don't know how I managed to force the words out. It's after 11 o'clock by now and I realize that I must call Liana's family to let them know what has happened. But then it strikes me that I don't have a telephone number for her parents or for any of her brothers. I sink down on a bench by the door and I just can't help crying. Liana's family are bound to blame me for taking her away from them and letting this awful thing happen to her. And then not even telling them. I don't know what to do, and I know that I must stop crying and be strong for Liana, but I can't seem to be strong for her right now. I fish for my hanky but I can't find it, and I don't even care that I'm in public and everyone can see me crying. I have never felt so helpless. Then a hand picks up mine and puts a big hanky into it. I put my whole face into the hanky and sob. Someone sinks onto the bench beside me and puts an arm around me. There, old girl, get it all out, that's right. Ellis gathers me into his chest and pats my back, and just as I'm beginning to recover enough to feel embarrassed, he lets go of me and gives me a new hanky. Have you had anything to eat today? I'm sobbing a bit less now and I manage to shake my head. I hadn't had any breakfast at the hotel, because I had idiotically thought that I would have café complet sent in for Liana and me to share while we waited together for the hearing. Of course neither of us had any heart to eat once I'd told her there would be no hearing today. And I am in no mood to eat now either, only a monster could think of food at a time like this, and I get angry enough with the major to stop crying altogether. This is no time to be fussing over food. Oh, but it is, old girl, must keep your strength up. Can't think clearly on an empty stomach. Tell Uncle Ellis what the trouble is. Bit by bit I get the story out. So what's your priority, Mari? Telling Liana's family she's in trouble or finding a way to get her out of trouble? I can't make any sense of that. What do you mean? I mean if your friend had wanted her family to know she would have told them. She knows her mother's phone number. She knows that the police would have given her a telephone if she'd asked. The Surte always play a straight bat. I'll be most surprised if they didn't offer her use of a phone. So if your friend isn't calling her family, Mari, it's because she's relying on you to help her. Are you going to let her down? How dare he? I can't remember when I was last so angry. How dare he sit there and preach at me? It isn't his friend who was led away in handcuffs and locked up in a foreign prison. How dare he accuse me of not wanting to help Liana when I do anything to see her go free? That's the ticket. He stands up and hauls me to my feet. Let's get you an omelette. You'll see things differently when you've eaten. Harry Brown doesn't know Major Ellis Peveril, but they are in complete agreement about the importance of fueling the inner man. He munches on a giant club sandwich whilst his team goes into action. A true leader knows when to delegate. When his lads are done, Fergal Riley's good looks are messed up, but there's no permanent damage, except maybe a broken nose. Maybe not. Hard to tell right now. They've done a good job. Brown thinks complacently, just as I told them. Not hurt the stupid git much yet, because I might need him to be able to walk, but hurt him enough so he knows that real pain is on the cards if he doesn't straighten up fast. Good lads. All right me boyo, let's take it from the top. You got on the train at Le Havre, right? Fergal swallows a couple of times and manages to croak out, yes, boss. And you found the woman whose luggage Magat had targeted on the boat, and got Valerie to introduce you to her, right? Yes, boss. And you waited your moment and got hold of her passport for Magat to use crossing the border into Italy, right? Yes, boss. And she had no idea you'd done that? Fergal shakes his head, which is a mistake. The blood starts flowing again. Not a clue. He mops at his nose with the back of his hand. And while she was passed out in the ladies' room you got her keys dash. Fergal nods. And went to her hotel to fetch the detonator dash. Yes, boss. Now this is what I don't understand, my lad. Why did you swipe her keys? She'd locked the case. And you knew that how? I told you, boss, as soon as the bellboy got their luggage I went to get the detonator but the case was locked. Wiping at his nose with both hands now. So I let him put it in the room and half-inched a room key off of him. Why didn't you break the case open? Because you said to do it quietly, boss. You said not to let them know. That's right, you idiot. I said to do it quietly. And then you bring the Surte down on us like a rash. Wasn't my fault. I didn't kill that taxman. No, you moron. What you did was a lot more damaging. Why didn't you slip her passport into her handbag when Magat was done with it? She was in clink. And every handbag she owns was in jail with her? Fergal dabs at his nose. If you had to pull such a stupid theatrical stunt, why did you lead them here? Where else was she likely to have lost her passport? You brain-dead ape. If you'd done your job right she'd never have known it was missing. All right. Maybe you're telling me the truth. That or the stupidest lie I've heard in a long time. What have you done with the detonator? The intercom comes alive. Harry, the gendarmes are here again. Harry depresses the key. I'll be right there. He turns to the bouncers. Don't let him pass out before I get back. I am beginning to be a little uncomfortable that the Major is paying for so many of my meals. There doesn't seem to be much I can do about it. I can't offer to pay in a public place, that would be shocking manners, terribly insulting to an old-school type like the Major. I can't offer a return of hospitality. Morag's home cooking is hundreds of miles away and the meals at Hotel Albert don't bear comparison with the wonderful food at the Major's hotel. I can't refuse to eat, that would be a worse insult than offering to pay. I can't refuse to be in his company at mealtimes because the overriding priority is to find a new fact which will force the Surte to let Liana go, and facts seem to present themselves every minute of the day, not that this has helped Liana so far. Perhaps there is some little gift that I can get for him, But what do you buy for the man who has everything? Because it is obvious that the Major is seriously rich. Those pots of wonderful tea must cost a king's ransom to brew, here in the heart of a capital city that does not understand tea. How did he even teach them the way to do it? Scrub the idea of buying a gift. I must make a present for him. What? I put the conundrum to the back of my mind, and there it bumps into a thought that coyly hides behind it. There was something I should have put into my notebook earlier and didn't. A clue. What was it? I think back, but nothing comes to me. It has something to do with me sitting in a cafe eating, because I'm sitting in a cafe eating now, and a tiny thought is fighting to make itself heard. They call that a sense memory. A teacher learns 100 ways to get knowledge branded into memory. How else are your pupils going to pass their exams? Something about where I am now is in some way similar to where I was when the elusive thought first came to me. But Ellis is speaking, so, my dear, do you feel more the thing now? He beams at me when I admit that yes, the food has steadied me. I dig out my notebook, and when I look up again with the little book in my hand, I see that Ellis is still beaming, and suddenly I begin to wonder what he's getting out of all this. Yes, it's lovely for me to have someone looking after me and feeding me and helping me to find some way to free Liana, but why is the Major devoting himself to me like this? Why has he helped me with the Surte? Why does he keep feeding me? Why does he spend so much time going through all the clues and papers with me? Why was he thrashing Tax Charlie? What does it matter to him whether Stout's killer is caught? And I realize I've hit it. For some reason at present beyond my ken, Major Peveril, I had better stop thinking of him as Ellis, wants to catch Charlie Stout's killer. And he's using me as bait. That's a totally irrational thought which came out of nowhere. And I know it's true. I don't know how or why, but for some reason I'm the goat tethered in the clearing, and the Major is the watchful hunter, waiting with loaded gun for the tiger to appear. I immediately decide that he can whistle for his present. I'll not be wearing my fingers to the bone making a gift for this smarty pants. If I'm his tethered goat, he has to feed me, and to keep me safe from other predators, so that I'll still be a juicy mouthful when the tiger reaches the clearing.